lovely panel here and the lovely music playing there. A lot of questions that I wanted to ask have already been asked. So I think we'll just make it easier for all of you, but not so much for the panelists. One thing which I also wanted to put on table before we even start, if there are any pressing questions in the audience, feel free to ask as well. So we'll have a discussion here with the esteemed panelists here. But if there's anything else that any of you would want to ask, I'm sure when it comes to technology, information.
Prime Minister was saying technology is going to eradicate poverty. Being lived in a place which is totally grow up rather in places where it's totally infested, or not, I should say infested, but with no access to things, okay? No access to healthcare, no access to basic things. There is, Naxalites, right? I grew up there. And fortunately, there was a doctor who came to treat my father. He would have died, okay? So that's where I'm coming from. So you talk about technology, you talk about this, you talk about that. So technology is great. Okay, I was thinking of taking some course from AI in IIS Bangalore. The cost was, I think, 4 lakhs. Okay, because they think they can make 50 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 70 lakhs. Is it a sustainable model? That's why there is job loss.
Yeah.
Okay. There is always, God has a plan. I'm sorry. I'm actually, that's a disease actually. Okay? Believing in God is a disease. That's called science and spirituality. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And that's a great segue into the next session. These were the things that we exactly wanted to discuss. And you very rightly mentioned that technology should be an enabler, and it is an enabler. It's a great enabler. We have seen it work in different ways. I have with me here the 3 esteemed panelists, Mr. Jitendra Mishra, who is the VP and CIO, the Akums group. I'm sure all of us have heard about Akums group and the volume of the pharma ingredients that makes and also makes it for other companies. I have with me Mr. Vinayak Neeralli. He's the head of digital at Dr. Reddy's labs and also has extensive experience working with multiple other pharma companies as well. And I have Mr. Sachin Bachal, who is the head of IT at Gufic Biosciences. And all of them in different ways have been using IT and technology beyond IT as enablers for improving healthcare. And this is exactly what we want to discuss. And just taking a cue from what you said, sir, I would actually like to place the first question for Mr. Jitendra in terms of how the IT ecosystem in India is often regarded as the IT hub in terms of services and in terms of the talent across the world. And I worked across 80 different countries across the world, and the IT ecosystem is well recognized, not just in India, but outside across different continents. So how do you see, Jitendra, in terms of this IT ecosystem integrating with our vision of pharma industry being a global innovator for the rest of the world? In your own experience, if you could share some insights with the group, that would be great.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. About Akums, I think many of you may not be knowing that overall India consumptions, we contribute around 17 to 18% of the manufacturing. And you name the pharma company presence in India, whether it is a local or MNC, we manufacture for all the pharma companies, right? And we are already EU and MHRA approved. And certainly we are going to look into that, some of the highly regulated market in US and all. So coming to the point that basically from the information technology background, and used to be happen that IT is a big enabler. I no more agree with that. It's not enabler, now it is a center. It's the center of the focus for any business, be it is a banking or any pharma companies or any business you look into that, the IT comes into the center place, right? And so it's happening in the boardroom also about the information technology and how we can accelerate the business using IT as a tool. Now, we have seen the journey from novel drug discovery to the go-to-market. You take any area where IT is not being the central point of delivery. Earlier used to be happen that you have to have efficient MRP systems, ERP systems, and we seen that in the early 80s and 90s when the ERP's era was there. Now we talked about the clinical trial on a moving human body. I mean, I have seen some of the companies having clinical trials, having a tie-up with the big of the company, which are purely IT driven, doing this clinical trial on a moving body. What it means that not only we are reducing go-to-market, but also ensuring that the IT, which is being now looked at the center, is enabling in a such a way which is the most critical part of any pharma life cycle. And these are got an ecosystem and a harmonization with the IT companies where is a revenue sharing also. I mean, this is something which is quite surprising. There's a revenue sharing model between the IT company and a pharma company to how we can slow down, because if you look into that, the maximum time is happening on a clinical trial. Most of the time we see that the novel drug discovery go-to-market, something which has reduced from 12 years to 8 years. Now we are targeting about to reduce 4 years. That is a clinical. Now in overall, this journey, not only we are going to reduce the time cycle, but ensuring that the discovery go to the patients and that it get really benefited to them. We have seen over a period that IT-OT integration, which is not a new thing. I cannot say it is something which is new, but now the real harness of that technology being seen, and most of the companies are going toward IT-OT integration. Now we talked about that the robotic automation, we talked about that smart manufacturing, which is now becoming the real in every pharma company. What I have observed from, I worked almost 7 to 8 pharma companies and then seen that this journey from ERP era to the clinical trial having such very heavy applications being loaded and monitored remotely from system sitting anywhere, that point of view. So this is something which is very interesting, and we have seen that a very big enabler. We talked about the enabling IT into the business, but we have seen the biggest enabler in our life cycle. I think it is a coronavirus. Within a 2 year or 1 year, you see that the clinical trial happened and the vaccine is ready. And not this has set up a new benchmark to the pharma company as how fast we can go to the market and using technology, whether it is Ayushman, whether it is a Make of India. A lot of focus is happening on information technology from private and public sectors. And government is also playing a very, very wide role on that, especially when you talk about the Ayushman and all, where the affordable medicines is reachable. Something which is happening, which is quite amazing in the current context, and a long way to go, but technology is no more enabler. It is now sitting into the center point. Without that, I think it cannot be driven any business. That's what I want to comment.
Very well put, Jiten. Thanks for that. And I would completely agree with you that it has moved beyond just being labeled as an enabler and has been integrated in many ways. And that very well goes into the next question that I have for Vinayak, which is all around using that data and technology to generate insights. So we talked about the go-to-market model, which Jitendra was talking about, how data gets included into that. Dr. Reddy Labs has been at the forefront of innovating in terms of newer molecules, newer formulations, also newer ways of expanding the business and access to people at large. So I just wanted to discuss a bit about that and see how that data and also subsequently the buzzword these days, artificial intelligence and machine learning, is contributing to that, not just in Dr. Reddy Labs, but also beyond that. I'd love to hear from
Sure.
you.
So thanks, Gaurav, for the question, and thank you for having me here. So with respect to data, I think thanks to COVID, I think a lot of focus came into our ecosystem in terms of data generated insights. Like the previous panelists were alluding to God, I think we also continue on along the same lines where we said, in God we trust, but let's bring in data first and let's have a chat more around data in terms of what is there on the table first. So when we looked at our own assets and the data that we have collected over the last many years, we first saw that a lot of our data sets were very fragmented. They were not connected. They were very isolated. In terms of at least the last couple of years, what we have ensured is trying to bridge everything together, getting it all stitched together, making generating a lot of insights over there. So that was very much the first basic foundational step as far as how we had started out. And when we look at it more from an inciting perspective, we look at three main principles in terms of how we sort of drive insights and then an actions out of that. Whether it is big enough for us to chase a certain idea, whether it is useful in terms of what are the users that we are trying to target and we are trying to help them out, and whether it is surprising. Sometimes, if it is known fact, people generally tend to dismiss and the change management, adoption, overall deployment of technology becomes a lot more challenging. So as such, we try and focus on these three little levers that we try and use to get out our insights and then figure out the actions. Now, as we have propelled with respect to data within our system, we have deployed a fair amount of AI/ML use cases. And coming from a commercial IT function, I will say that a lot of our use cases that we have, be it in terms of, let's say, go-to-market model. Uh, During COVID, it was very essential for us to get certain medicines out there in the rural market, right? So figuring out what sort of data sets are available, even from government of India, trying to figure out what is the real population available spread across geographies of India, and trying to ensure that there is deeper penetration, availability of medicines for the patients, making it accessible for them was one such use case. The other use case that we typically deploy at scale from a AI/ML use case is the standard traveling salesman problem, right? As a part of the whole access issues with respect to doctors because of COVID reasons, we had to figure out a lot more intelligent ways to make sure that our medical representatives are going in a safe environment. They are also being considerate of others within the ecosystem. So trying to minimize their travel time, trying to enable them to get back to home in a reasonable amount of time, ensuring that there is collective intelligence with respect to all the people out there who are working with other such use cases that we have deployed. There is no end to it. I think as we have a lot more maturity on the machine learning use cases at this point in time. But yeah, I think it's a lot more exciting for us. We look forward to more and more of AI use cases in coming days.
Great. Thanks, Vinayak. And I would completely agree with you. Having seen and worked on how real world evidence works, how the big data and the data lakes are being used, I think there is great level of optimization that is happening across the world. And it's really heartening to see that there is collaboration happening as well. Till around couple of years back, data was seen and used as my property versus yours. That's changing now, and it's really great to see that because at the end of the day, it's patients' data, it's data that belongs to the community, and it's great to see that it's being used that way. And that's the way it would hopefully improve patient outcomes as well in future. Thanks for that, Vinayak. And that takes me to the third question that I had, and that goes to you, Sachin, which is around the whole area of transformation. We are looking at a significant transformation in terms of the business processes and also in terms of how the market is responding to those processes as well. I would like to understand from you how the whole issue of technology and data can play into this transformation from not just a CIO's perspective, but from a CEO's perspective. How do they look at it as an investment case? How do they look at it as something that needs to be invested in?
Speaking about data, so I feel data is a new oil, and everyone has that with them. So whoever is in this business for more than 10 to 20 years is sitting on the gold mine of data. More important is how do you leverage this data, and you need a right technology to leverage this data. So if I give an example, in hospitals when we treat patients, we use a combination of therapies. Same goes with technology. We have to use a combination of technologies and extract this data and put to the best use of this data. Speaking more about data, I feel data we all have, but how to use that data is more important. I'm sure, everyone has this data. Even a smartphone has a data. It has the data related to your health. Your smartphone is monitoring your health. It is tracking your daily activities like your sleep patterns. It tracks your walking patterns, and it can help in arriving whether you are stressed out or not. So it depends on how you use this data. So data is very critical, and I would say we need to invest in a proper technology which will help you to take a faster decisions when you analyze this data and give it to someone for further action.
Thanks a lot for all your comments. And I would like to bring all or blend all the three responses together and say that yes, I think we are sitting in an enviable space here in India. While the government is promoting localization and the whole Make in India theme is in some ways amplifying that collaboration and the coalition around locally manufactured products. It's also bringing together different leaders across IT, across pharma, across healthcare to come together and design something new. And that's where I personally feel very excited about it, and all the responses that you have shared with me point in that direction as well. In terms of the transformation, we have been discussing this since morning, that there is transformation that's happening across healthcare, whether it's in terms of service delivery, product innovation, or in terms of the ways in which we are becoming leaders in healthcare outside India as well. And if any of you would like to address that in terms of future potential of India in healthcare and bringing together the data technology and healthcare and being a leader that all other countries vie for, or in some ways emulate, would love to hear that as well in terms of India being the leader there.
That's a very important question. We see that we learn a lot from the COVID, and then see how we are dependent upon other countries for the ingredients, especially. And then that point of time, everybody start realizing that this way it is not going to work. Reason being that if you are dependent, especially in this case, I will talk about China, when we talk about the APIs and all, huge dependency on different countries, because that is an ingredient where you can actually make the formulations and all. Now we see from that point of time, and there's a long roadmap for that. It's not going to be happen in maybe year or 5 years so, but yes, there is a vision which government is driving to how ensure that APIs can be built in India. That's a long story, but definitely one day we will see that we are very aggressive on our API manufacturing. Most of the ingredients we procure from outside India, especially from China and all. And when see that, because that also is a very very costly affair for us, because that's the cost goes into formulation and that pass to the patient. Now, how efficiently, because we are talking about India, I think this only 1%, 1.5% overall economic budget is being allocated to healthcare in India. Whereas even if you look into the Bangladesh, even 2.5 is that the budget allocated. Now we are looking to that Ayushman and all, what have been initiated by the government of India, that will be a huge drive from the healthcare industry, from manufacturing to the supply chain overall ecosystem, which need to be strengthened, and government is really very, very, very aggressive on that point of view. Remaining other, if you talk about that, the drug discovery and all, definitely we are matching to any other European countries, because that set is itself is a very difficult, because we largely doing some generic business in India largely, but even if you look into that, the supplying to the US market because of the cost efficiency and because of the capacity and because of the go-to-market strategy, whatever the lead time is there, which is quite good to address the overall supply. And that is why you see that lot many Indian companies are becoming a multinational company, especially those who are supplying to the US market and all. So there are proven reasons, and we see that the pharma story was very rosy, and it will be really rosy for years to come, especially for India. We talked about largely on information technology and pharma, which are two very proven business sector for filling the whole world requirement. These are very, very prominent. We never see that any third line. We never talked about that. I really don't know which line, but these two pharma sector and the IT sector is very prominent, and years to, we have proven that. It's not that something we are addressing, but we have proven that. One thing I would like to add, which I never shared, but we never thought, but one point of time, you note it today itself, maybe 25 years, there will be no industry. There will be, every industry will be IT industry. Every industry will be known as the IT industry. If you look into that, the BFSI sector, first, every employee will be like a IT savvy. Without that, they cannot be get employment also. So there will be a basic category of getting the employment that he must be having some basic qualification in information technology. Maybe 20 year, 25 year. Every company will be proud to say that I am information technology driven. If they are not, then they will be out of business. Now, one example from FedEx, that who runs your trucks? The technology trucks runs the trucks. I mean, that is the code being given by the CEO. So that's the take from my side.
Great. Thanks, Jitendra. Anything from you, Vinayak?
So I think I'm pretty excited personally as well as a company. I think we are very much looking towards the government initiatives in terms of digitizing a lot of our through the ABDM, right? So be it from a patient angle, be it from a care provider, be it from a hospital setup, or from a pharma company angle, I think there are a lot of services that we can overlay, a lot of things that we can bring together. Many new businesses can come out of this particular offering eventually. So I just feel like we are moving in the right direction, just that the amount of acceleration that is needed for all of us to come together and get this thing up and running is the part that I look forward to.
Thanks, Vinayak. Any closing comments from you, Sachin?
So I completely agree with Mr. Jitendra, what he said. Technology is the need of the hour. Without technology, you cannot excel. Every industry needs technology.
Thanks, Sachin. I think you capped it very well. And thanks to all three of you for sharing your insights and deep expertise in terms of bringing together technology and healthcare in this era of change and transformation. So thanks to all of you, and thanks again to VT Health for hosting us here today. Thanks.